Kamal.
Thank you so much, Anshik. Am I properly audible? And can you see my presentation screen?
Yes, very much audible and very much visible.
Great. Thank you so much. Hey, everyone. So as Anshik mentioned, this is a very, very important topic for a webinar. Probably this might be the most important health topic that as TGHC, and which is why we took pains to work with Dr. Vijay, and we are lucky to have him on this webinar. This might be the most important topic for a healthcare webinar, we think, also given the fact that today happens to be World Hypertension Day. The reason why this is such an important topic is because high blood pressure is the #1 risk factor for cardiovascular diseases, heart attacks, strokes, etc. And heart attacks and strokes are the #1 killer globally today, as well as in India, accounting for a third of all the adult deaths which are happening, right? So if there is one health condition that we all need to be aware of, and that we all need to be working on to change at our individual level, as well as for our family members and for our friends and colleagues around us, it has to be high blood pressure or hypertension. So this webinar, we are going to focus on high blood pressure. What are the associated risks with high blood pressure? And what are the ways to overcome it? 10 things to do when your doctor says you have high blood pressure or hypertension, because those are the actionable takeaways that we want all of you to walk away with at the end of this webinar. So with that, I also welcome Dr. Vijay. And Dr. Vijay, perhaps you could give some opening remarks, and then we can go to the agenda and the rest of the webinar.
Yeah. So it's as Kamal has told, it is a very important topic. The main reason being it is a silent killer. We really do not know what is our blood pressure until and unless we have certain side effects of the end organ damages caused by hypertension. For example, if you have a fever, you will immediately identify the fever. If your sugar levels are a bit up, it causes certain amount of polyuria, polydipsia, and all other symptoms. But if your blood pressure is a bit high, is borderline high or a little higher than what is actually required by for the body perfusion, but still we do not have any symptoms. Symptoms only develop in a later stage. That is when the BP has crossed 180 or 190 and there is end organ damage. So that is the reason why we need to identify this silent killer. We need to track it down and bring it to normal so that our life continues as usual. Okay, so that is the reason why we have to identify this thing. Yeah, please continue, Mr. Kamal.
Sure. So important disclaimer, we are a responsible healthcare company as the Good Health Clinic, and I'm sure Dr. Vijay also will testify that the contents of this webinar and this presentation are for informational purposes only and do not constitute medical advice. If you are suffering with any health conditions or any symptoms, you must refer to your physician. You can obviously refer Dr. Vijay also separately one-to-one, and in which case you will get proper physician advice. But everything else in this presentation is for informational purposes only. So let's dive right in. The agenda for today, 5 topics. Number 1, let's understand the enormity of this challenge in India, right? How big has this problem of hypertension become? Why are we as Indians at greater risk, right? Why is it that almost every second Indian now, based on the latest guidelines on hypertension issued by American Heart Association, is considered hypertensive? What are the causes and can we reverse those? Most importantly, what are the changes that we can make today? And lastly, questions and answers from the audience here, right? What are some of the changes? What are some of the foods? Other questions that you might have. Lastly, but also very importantly, at the end of this webinar, we'll be sharing an exclusive limited time offer from the Good Health Clinic for you and for your family members. So if you have hypertension, or if you are suffering from any of the conditions associated with cardiovascular disease or metabolic conditions, you will have no excuse at the end of this webinar to not make the right changes by working with the Good Health Clinic. So please stay till the end and please make use of that offer. Let's look at some top-down numbers to understand the scale of this challenge in India. 1 in 3 adults in India suffers from hypertension. And this is based on the older guidelines called JNC7, which were more relaxed in nature. So even based on those more relaxed guidelines, 1/3 of you on this webinar have hypertension. You have high blood pressure. If you look at the latest guidelines by American College of Cardiology and American Heart Association, which lower the threshold of blood pressure to be classified as high blood pressure or hypertensive, there are estimates which say that almost every second Indian adult will be considered hypertensive. What is scarier is the fact that 1 in 2 patients of hypertension is not even diagnosed, right? As doctor was mentioning earlier, this truly is the silent killer, because not only do we have blood pressure at such a scale in the country, half of us who have blood pressure, we don't even know that we have it. And so the third circle here, which says that 1 in 5 diagnosed patients, only 1 in 5 has their blood pressure in control. So if 33 of you in this audience, 33% of you in this audience, if you have blood pressure, only 20% of that 33% will actually have their blood pressure in control, right? What does all of that mean? It means every year there are 20 lakh deaths in India which are directly attributable to hypertension, right? Think about that. 20 lakh people dying in India every year because of hypertension. Mostly, they did not even know that they had it till it got too late. And even when they knew they had it, they were most likely not being able to manage their blood pressure properly and keep it within range. And this is the last metric, which is the median age of people now showing up in clinics with heart health conditions, again, primarily attributable to blood pressure, is 34, right? So please do not think that this is a disease which will affect you in old age. This is a disease which will only hit you when you turn 45 or 50 or 55 years of age. This is now affecting people in their early 30s, right? So all of us, as the doctor was alluding to earlier, all of us need to be aware of this. All of us need to measure our blood pressure on a regular basis. And most importantly, all of us need to take all the steps required to prevent hypertension from happening. Because in so many ways, if you have already crossed that threshold and if you're already hypertensive, you will have to go on medication. And most of these medications will have some or the other side effects, right? So let's also think about how do we prevent blood pressure, high blood pressure from happening in the first place? How do we understand the risk factors and we can try and prevent that in the first place? So with that as the opening preamble, Doctor, again, I invite you for comments because you deal with hypertension in your clinic day in and day out, right? What are some of the trends that you are seeing in terms of age, in terms of gender, in terms of, risk factors of people showing up with hypertension in your clinic?
Yeah, I'm basically a clinician. So the what I practically see in my clinic is absolutely similar to what is there in the theory also. That is number one. Number two, but I have a little specialty bias because I'm a nephrologist. So most of the patients who come to me are in the state of secondary hypertension. Fine. So now the terminology of hypertension has gone through a full cycle. So basically, I just wanted to let you all know that there are two types of hypertension defined. One is essential hypertension, also called as primary hypertension. Second thing is called the secondary hypertension, which is usually what I see in my nephrology practice. Okay, so there is a selection bias, there is a location bias, there is a specialty bias. I see my patients, nearly 100% of them are hypertensive. Now, coming to this terminology, which was previously called as primary hypertension, which was previously called as essential hypertension, it has gone through a whole cycle. See, basically, why did they label it as essential? Previously, they thought that the pressure in the blood vessels should be to such an extent that it will lead to tissue perfusion. Okay, so as you age, okay, you require more amount of pressure so that the tissue perfusion is going on. That was the old concept. Hence, they have labeled it as essential hypertension. In fact, it was not essential at all. It is in fact non-essential, or it's not required. So that terminology has been now removed and made it as primary hypertension. The primary hypertension, the causes could be genetic or environmental. We'll discuss about that in detail. That is regarding primary. In secondary, most common cause for secondary hypertension, which I see, is chronic kidney disease. The kidney disease patients, in almost nearly 95 to 96% of these patients will have hypertension. Even though there are some amount of patients who have salt losing nephropathy, they too also land up in hypertension as their stage of chronic kidney disease keeps on progressing. Number one. Number two, demographically, hypertension is now seen more common in children also. This wasn't the rule, this wasn't the scenario previously. Now, even an adolescent, 15, 16 years adolescent, recently last week, I had seen a child who was nearly 11 years old, who was obese, okay, who was on all the various junk foods, and she had hypertension. And she was referred to me to rule out secondary causes for hypertension. Then I had to do thorough testing. I had to do ultrasound abdomen. I had to do renin, angiotensin, everything, all the hormones which are available. And then when I looked at the reports, I could find nothing. So it was basically primary hypertension, which has started even in children. Uh, the causes would be multifactorial, but things have started to roll.
And so I think there are three things, if I may summarize there, Doctor, three things you said which are very important. The first thing which you said was that as the scientific community, the understanding of hypertension itself is changing, right? So earlier, like you mentioned, it was considered essential hypertension as we age, but now we know that actually that was a misnomer, right? We don't need to have quote unquote essential hypertension. So now it is appropriately being referred to as primary hypertension. And if I may add, primary hypertension would be the vast majority of overall cases of hypertension, right? So that's one thing you said. The second thing that you also alluded to, which we will also go into more detail in subsequent pages, is this core relationship between hypertension and kidney health, right? There is a two-way street here between hypertension and the kidney conditions. And we'll also delve into that. We'll also look at some of what the American Heart Association is saying in terms of how the kidneys get affected because of high visceral obesity. In other words, high belly fat, fat in our viscera, and how that then affects development of kidney disease, which can then in turn lead to something called secondary hypertension, right? That's the second thing you said. The third thing that you also mentioned is that the age profile of these patients, very, very tragically and unfortunately, is actually trending downwards, right? Even adolescents, even kids are now starting to develop hypertension because of these other risk factors that they have started to carry, such as obesity, such as other metabolic disorders, right? So I think these are three important takeaways that we should then use for moving to our next section. So high blood pressure, like we were talking about earlier, is the leading risk factor driving death and disability globally and in India, right? So if you look at the global picture, which is on the left-hand side of the page, high blood pressure alone is considered to be one of the top risk factors, accounting for nearly 10 million deaths globally, right? That's 1 crore deaths linked to high blood pressure globally. In India, which is the chart on the bottom right of the page, you'll see that high blood pressure is the fourth leading risk factor driving death and disability combined, right? So it's number 4 after malnutrition, which fortunately for most of us in this webinar will not be a problem, right? Malnutrition unfortunately still affects, millions of Indians, but for most of us living an urban lifestyle, that's not the problem that we are dealing with. We are dealing with dietary risks, which is number 2. We are dealing with air pollution, which is number 3. And we are dealing with high blood pressure. If you think about what is under our control, clearly we cannot control air pollution, right? There isn't much that we can do at an individual level about air pollution, but we can control our diet and we can make lifestyle changes for high blood pressure, right? So from that point of view, as a modifiable risk factor, high blood pressure is up there at the very top with dietary risks. This next page talks about the fact that heart, brain, eyes, and kidneys are the target organs of hypertension, causing strokes, heart attacks, vision loss, and kidney failure. So deaths occur because of strokes, heart attacks, kidney failure. Disabilities occur because of vision loss and because of paralysis caused by strokes, right? Now, going back to the point that Doctor, you were making earlier, which is our kidneys are particularly susceptible and vulnerable, right? From both a cause and effect perspective with hypertension, maybe you could give just a little bit more of the science behind how kidneys get affected by hypertension. And then, just so our audience also has a better understanding of the next level detail on health from kidney side.
Yeah. So basically, I'm very surprised that whenever anybody has a newly diagnosed hypertension, people tend to look for a cardiologist. They just ask who is the best cardiologist, to whom should I go to get my hypertension treated. Of course, they are surpassing the physicians. That is what is happening in India, because super specialists are available and everybody wants a super specialist. But when hypertension comes into the mind, the only doctor people will remember is a cardiologist. But I find it very surprising, because most of the textbooks of nephrology are named as textbook of nephrology and hypertension. That means that hypertension, the major cause for hypertension is the kidney itself. Right now, let us look at the science behind that. Most of the hypertension, what we see, even let us talk about primary or even secondary. In the primary aspect of hypertension, the most of the common causes for hypertension are all related to sodium retention. Okay, it's the sodium, the salt. Okay, where does the salt get filtered? It gets filtered in the kidney. Where does it get reabsorbed? Again, it reabsorbed in the kidney. So something is wrong with the salt retaining state of the kidney. More salt is retained. For example, in early diabetic nephropathies, more salt is retained. So that excess salt will lead to excess water retention, will lead to hypertension. That is from the kidney, number 1. Number 2, sympathetic activity also occurs from the kidney, because renal arteries are highly innervated structures. So any problem with the renal artery, a small cholesterol emboli or a small cholesterol atherosclerosis there will lead to sympathetic overactivity, will lead to hypertension. Okay, that is second way. Third way is the secondary causes. When you look at the secondary causes for hypertension, the most common cause is 90% of the times it is kidney. So your kidneys are failing, your BP goes up. So eventually, BP usually starts from the kidney and again it ends in the kidney. So when the hypertension is persistent, uncontrolled over a long duration of time, it will definitely lead to proteinuria, that is kidney damage, and that proteinuria will eventually cause a rise in the serum creatinine. And a sudden surge of hypertension can also cause thrombotic microangiopathy, or it's a little more complicated cause for renal failure. So whatever may be the hypertensive state of the patient, definitely kidney, either it is a cause or the effect.
Right, right. And I think, so this is also something that I think our audience needs to now remember, that you need to worry about your kidneys first if you've been diagnosed as hypertensive, right? You need to consult a nephrologist first, because there are lots and lots of secondary effects which you might be able to prevent if you start working early with a nephrologist, right? In terms of chronic kidney disease, chronic kidney failure, or even in terms of exacerbating your blood pressure because you are not managing your kidney health properly. I think that's one point. The second point that the doctor you said, which is important, is the role of sodium in hypertension, right? And I think that's something that all of you need to remember. All of us need to think about it, because when we consider the diet and lifestyle changes that we can all make to prevent or to reverse even the risk of hypertension, we'll have to think about sodium intake, salt intake. And the third thing that you mentioned is the even a little bit of cholesterol deposition in the renal arteries and the renal blood vessels can cause a cascading effect in terms of the kidney not being able to do its job properly from a sodium absorption or sodium reabsorption or sodium excretion point of view, right? So we need to also think about where might that excess cholesterol be coming from, right? Is there another part of this story when we need to think about that we need to think about when we are considering preventing hypertension in future? So I think with that, it is only appropriate right now that we look at some of the classification behind high blood pressure, right? These are the latest guidelines published in 2017 by American Heart Association. What they say is normal blood pressure is 120/80. 120 is the systolic blood pressure, and 80 is the diastolic blood pressure. If your blood pressure is under 120 and 80, you are considered normal. And I'll get back to doctor in 1 minute on defining what is systolic and diastolic blood pressure, because I'm sure a lot of you also probably think about what are these numbers 120 and 80. So we'll get the doctor to elaborate on that. But if you are above 120 but under 130, it is considered elevated blood pressure. You need to change your health habits, as you see on the right-hand side of the table, if you are having elevated blood pressure. Above 130 is already classified as hypertension. Stage 1 hypertension is your systolic blood pressure above 130 and under 140. If your diastolic blood pressure, which is the lower range of the blood pressure, if that is between 80 and 90, you are already considered stage 1 hypertensive. If you look at the previous guidelines, the JNC7 guidelines, then they would have classified you as hypertensive for 140 or higher. Whereas now, given the risk calibration that these medical associations have done, they are saying 130 is already the threshold for being classified as hypertension. If you are stage 1 hypertensive or stage 2 hypertensive, your doctor is very likely to advise you to go on medications, right? They'll also take into account your other risk factors, and they might use the cardiovascular disease risk calculator to advise if you need to go on medications or not, if you are stage 1 hypertensive. Stage 2 hypertensive, you'll certainly be on medications, and you should be. Anything above 180, which Dr. Vijay, you were also talking about earlier, so that's how most people find out that they have some symptoms. That's considered hypertensive crisis. And from whatever I know, your risk of getting a stroke above 160 mm of mercury almost goes up parabolically, right? So you need to be very, very cautious at that stage. So with that, doctor, if you could just give us a little bit of an explanation about what are these terms, systolic blood pressure, diastolic blood pressure, and anything else that you might want to highlight on this page.
Yeah, nowadays, I mean, what we have seen during this COVID pandemic is that everybody has a pulse oximeter. Everybody has a digital blood pressure apparatus, either Omron or Moripen, whatever it may be. So people are well aware of these terms, systolic and diastolic, and that no doubt about that. But the only point is that they are not measuring their blood pressure properly. Okay. All the guidelines are now telling us that the blood pressure has to be measured in a very specific way. Okay, they have standardized that method also. If you want, I can elaborate right now, or you want me to tell a little bit later how to check your BP first. Now we are
I
all
think you
talking
can,
about.
how you can do that now, doctor, because I know that Anunaya in the audience, she's already asking this question of how do we define hypertension. So please go ahead.
Yeah, basically, nowadays, due to this COVID pandemic, previously what we used to do, a patient used to come to a hospital, used to sit in front of us. We used to tie the sphygmomanometer cuff and check the blood pressure manually. Okay. Now, due to this COVID, what we are maintaining social distancing, and latest guidelines are also telling that when you check the blood pressure in the office, in the hospital, it will be spuriously elevated because of anxiety, and which is also called as white coat hypertension. Okay, so preferably do not check the BP when you go to a hospital. Okay, so now as an equivalent to self monitoring of blood glucose, if you are a diabetic, what do? You check your blood glucose at home. Okay, now that is the gold standard. Previously we used to go to the lab to get the fasting blood sugars done, but now with the help of a glucometer we are checking the sugars. Now the same thing has to be extrapolated to hypertension. Okay, you need not have to go to hospital to a doctor to check your blood pressure. Sit at home, check your blood pressure. That is called as home BP measurements. Okay, now there is some standardization how you have to check. Can anybody of you answer, if you have to check your blood pressure, which arm do you check, right or left?
I think left arm is the answer that we are getting on the chat, doctor. So I think that might be the.
Did anybody answer right?
I think everybody's saying left arm. I'm just scrolling down the chat window. Oh, somebody's saying both. Shashikant is saying both. Aditya Shagufta Sheikh is saying right. Yeah, some people are saying right as well. So I think you have now prompted them to say right.
No, yeah. So to pick one, Shashikant is correct.
Right. Okay.
So basically, what has to be done is you have to check the both arms. Okay, two arms have to be checked, and in which arm your readings are higher, that arm has to be standardized. We tell the patient, by your right arm blood pressure is a bit higher than your left arm. Now from now onwards, get your BP checked in right arm only. See, the reason being, the higher value, if we catch properly, if we treat properly, the chances of the other risk factors will come down. Okay, so don't take the lower values, take the higher values. If your left arm is having higher BP, follow it up. If your right arm is having the higher BP, follow it up. So Shashikant is right in saying that you have to look at blood pressure in both arms and then standardize on that particular arm. Number one. Number two, there are certain things you should do before checking BP. You should always pass urine and then check your BP. Don't check your blood pressure with a full bladder. Many people do this mistake. A full bladder will cause sympathetic overactivity. Okay, you are restless. Have you ever, I mean, you definitely would have seen this. When you are full, you can't concentrate, you are restless, you are racing and pacing here and there. Your BP will go up. So pass urine on an empty bladder. Number one. Number two, do not take coffee, do not exercise at least 30 minutes before checking your blood pressure. Number two. Number three, always take the blood pressure in a sitting position with a chair which will support your back, not sitting on a stool. Okay. Number three. Number four, your legs should be on the floor, not like this. Legs should not be crossed. Okay.
So both feet on the floor. Yeah.
Both feet on the floor. Okay. Number four. Number five, your arm should be resting on the table. It should not be hanging right away as if you are giving a bouquet to somebody. Okay. So these are the basic steps where you should follow to check your BP, number one. Number two, a little more advanced version is that the patient should be in an isolated room, should not be speaking to anybody, okay, should preferably tend to meditate or just have a pleasant music, and then check the blood pressure. That is the correct definition of standardized blood pressure monitor, SBPM, okay, that is number one. Number two, another the best much more better than this is automated one. That is, there's a BP apparatus which is there, digital one. You just put your arm inside that and you get your blood pressure. This is an automated one. We are not using that yet, but at least the standardized method we are using, and that can be used at home. But the gold standard method is ambulatory blood pressure monitor. Here, what we do is we tie a cuff to the patient, okay, and we send the patient home with the BP apparatus. It's a small BP apparatus in the form of a cell phone, which is kept in the pocket of the patient, and the cuff is tied. The blood pressure is checked every half an hourly, all throughout the day. In the morning, in the night, when you're sleeping, when you're in the bathroom, everywhere. Okay, and those recordings are seen next day, and that is the best method of diagnosing hypertension. That is the best method of at least knowing the non-dippers. Non-dippers is basically during the night, your blood pressure should go down. That is the normal thing, because you are sleeping, sympathetic activity is gone down, so your BP will be on a lower side. But in those who are prone for developing hypertension and all its complications, their BP does not go down in the night. It stays on a higher range only. They are called as non-dippers. That is also identified by ambulatory blood pressure monitor. Hope it was an extensive, but I hope I answered your question.
I think, doctor, even though I am in healthcare for the last 2 years, but a lot of those things I did not know about, right? And I have gone to so many doctor clinics and gotten my blood pressure checked so many times, but I have to remark that almost never have the nurses told us to measure blood pressure in that proper fashion. And so I think, if nothing, I hope that alone makes this webinar worth it for most of the attendees, that they now know what is really the correct way of measuring blood pressure. So thank you so much for that. I can see a few other questions also in the chat. I think Anunaya is asking about the role of stress, which we will come to on a subsequent page. And I think, Nitish, you are asking about the causes and risk factors behind hypertension. What can we do? So let's dive right in. And this, by the way, is also linked to why we as Indians are considered at higher risk versus Western races, right? So the chart on the left-hand side is a complicated one, but it essentially boils down to what doctor was telling earlier, which is visceral obesity, fat that we have around our gut, around our belly, right? Not general obesity. So you don't need to have a BMI, a body mass index of above 30. You can actually be having almost normal weight. But if you have a lot of fat around your belly, right, which a lot of us these days, we tend to casually dismiss it as beer belly or beer fat or beer gut or whatever. Unfortunately, you cannot be casual about that. If you have visceral obesity, through multiple mechanisms involving the kidneys, as well as through other metabolic disorders, such as insulin resistance, glucose intolerance, dyslipidemia, which is high cholesterol, inflammation, you will tend to affect your kidneys one way or the other. And then your kidneys will, through the secondary hypertension route that the doctor was talking about, lead to high blood pressure, right? So either directly from visceral obesity to blood pressure, or indirectly through kidneys, through secondary hypertension to blood pressure. So as per American Heart Association, visceral adiposity is a major cause of hypertension, accounting for 65 to 75% of the risk for primary hypertension, right? So Nitish, to your question, what are the important causal factors or risk factors that we need to be aware of? we need to be measuring our waist size. We need to be measuring our waist size in relation also to our hip circumference, because waist to hip ratio might be the most important indicator to understand how much visceral obesity we have. Now, let's look at the second graphic on the right-hand side, which shows that these are two scientists, by the way, on the screen. The Caucasian gentleman is a British scientist called Dr. John Yatkin. Right-hand side, the Indian scientist is Professor C.S. Yajnik. They both were pioneers of diabetes and metabolic research in India and the UK back in the 1980s and 1990s. What this picture shows is they both have identical BMI, body mass index, 22.3, right? By all conventional definitions, if you look at a BMI of 22, you will think I'm actually normal weight, right? The classification of overweight is 25 and above. The classification of obese is BMI of 30 and above. The challenge is at identical BMI levels, the British scientist has a body fat of 9.1%. The Indian scientist has a body fat of 21.2%, so more than double, right? And unfortunately, so you can look at the Indian scientist, he doesn't look fat. By all standards, you would look at him and you would say, oh, he actually looks quite lean. The problem is we as Indians, we look lean because we have thinner arms and legs. And we don't also have a big, broad torso, but we still tend to accumulate a lot of this dangerous and metabolically active visceral fat, even at the same BMI levels, right? This is why we are at a higher risk of developing blood pressure at an early age and at a lower BMI, right? This is why we need to be even more conscious about our dietary choices, our lifestyle choices, our weight, et cetera, and our sodium intake, right? So I hope that links clearly visceral obesity with the risks of hypertension, as well as of the other metabolic disorder risks, such as insulin resistance, diabetes, which is glucose intolerance, high cholesterol, etc. So let's look at what can we do. I'm also conscious about time here. What can we do about it, right? This page on the left-hand side, the graphic is essentially a complicated biochemistry page, which shows what happens in the liver when we eat certain foods that we have not evolved to eat in large quantities as human beings. What are these foods? High sodium, salt intake, fructose, which essentially is added sugars without the fiber. So not fruits. You can eat as much apple and fruit as you want. That's not the problem. The problem is when you're drinking sugary beverages like Pepsi and Coca-Cola, when you're drinking fruit juices, when you're eating a lot of cakes and pastries and ice creams and all of these other things which have a lot of sugar added to them, right? Flavored yogurt, for example. Branch chain amino acids. So this is also counterintuitive. A lot of us think that we should be eating a lot of protein powders, and our gym coaches tell us to drink whey protein shakes after gym. Everybody says, oh, eat more protein, chicken, and all that. But please be mindful of the fact that the 3 branch chain amino acids, which are leucine, isoleucine, and valine, cause fatty liver. They cause the cascade of biochemical reactions in the liver, which ultimately lead to blood pressure, insulin resistance, high cholesterol, and obesity. The last two should not be a surprise to anyone: trans fats and alcohol, right? These are severely dangerous to the liver. Trans fats, which are found in dalda and other hydrogenated oils, but are also found in bakery items. They are also found in animal proteins like meats, dairy, and poultry, right? When you eat any of these foods, there's an avalanche of chemical reactions which happen in the liver through production of uric acid. Nitric oxide in our arterial walls gets depleted. When nitric oxide gets depleted, our arteries become stiffer, which means our heart has to pump at a higher pressure, which causes high blood pressure, right? Inflammation in the liver. insulin resistance. Hepatic IR means hepatic insulin resistance, which then causes production of more FFAs or free fatty acids. All of those cause muscle insulin resistance as well, which then further cascade into diabetes. And then, as the doctor was talking about earlier, that diabetes will cause diabetic nephropathy, which will then cause secondary hypertension, right? That chain reaction also causes dyslipidemia, which is high lipids or high cholesterol in our blood, which then gets exported to various fat depots in the body, and we get that visceral obesity and we get overall obesity. So I hope this stresses the importance of the fact that those 5 foods listed on the top right of the page are the culprits for most of the metabolic ill effects that 60–70% of Indian adults are now struggling with, right? Blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, obesity, insulin resistance in general. What are the other risk factors? Smoking, right? Again, should not be a surprise to any of you here. Smoking directly causes blood pressure, even in the absence of all of these other factors, right? If you are smoking, you will get blood pressure because of the inflammation that smoking causes in the body. Saturated fats, which are primarily found in animal products, right? Meats, chicken, dalda, ghee, etc., etc. Omega-6 fatty acids, endocrine disrupting chemicals. For example, if you are heating or microwaving food in plastic containers, please be careful. Anunaya asked a question around the relationship between stress and hypertension. Yes, high stress, especially high chronic stress and poor sleep, are linked to hypertension. Dr. Vijay earlier was talking about how sleep is when our blood pressure dips and comes down to lower levels, right? That's why good sleep is important, because good sleep is a natural antidote to stress and to hypertension, right? So if you're struggling with sleep because of anxiety or because of bad work lifestyle, etc., you need to focus on that. Doctor, any other thoughts on this page?
Yeah, the age-old Sanskrit saying, or which is called as Ati Sarvatra Varjayet, anything in excess is bad. Okay. Here, what you have to take away from this slide is, don't do anything in excess of what is written here. That doesn't mean you should completely avoid salt. Okay, from tomorrow stop eating salt. No, that is not the point here. Don't take high sodium salt. You take salt which is normal, which is on a little lower normal side, and remove all the invisible salt. Okay, invisible salt is the one which is you do not have a control over, which you have not put in your food by yourself. All the biscuits, bakeries, stuff, everything. Number one. Number two, I always tell my patients, to even diabetic patients also, you eat what God has given you. Don't eat what man has made. Okay.
That's right.
Okay, that is number one. Number two, another metaphor is, eat what is grown on plants, what is grown in plants. Okay. Plant means an industry. Yeah, right. For that. Right. So fructose. So if somebody tells you to eat fructose, it is good. I have no doubt about that. But doesn't mean do anything in excess or completely remove any of the these things. Number two. Number three. Somebody was asking, like, what type of non-veg shall we not consume non-veg? Som Kuvar was asking. See, the intention of this seminar is not to make or not to convert you to vegetarians. Okay, what we are trying to tell you is, if you are taking non-vegetarian, know from where it is coming, take in a limited quantity, make it at home, don't eat outside junk food. Okay, that is what we are trying to emphasize here. If you are a non-vegetarian, you eat fish, you eat chicken, you can eat, no doubt. See, culturally, as humans have advanced from foragers to the recent modern civilization, we have been omnivores, right, throughout our evolution. No doubt about that. In fact, we were carnivores even before we started to eat any herbs or agricultural revolution has set in. Okay. So non-vegetarian per se is not bad. Now just imagine the same non-vegetarian, you go to a hotel and they serve with thick masala with so much oil on top of it, and the
And salt.
chicken has been given so many antibiotics,
Yeah.
okay, and so much salt. Now, don't you think that is required by you over a period of 1 month? You are eating in one day.
Hmm.
So that is the emphasis of this thing. Don't do anything in excess. No, this doesn't hold good to smoking. Okay, when I
Hmm.
tell you not to do smoking in excess, don't do smoking in less amount.
Yeah.
Smoking is the one which has to be avoided. Okay, no doubt about that. Okay, no discussion. Right. Please continue.
Right. I think that's Doctor very useful, and I think there are also questions. So Suryansh, I think your question is around dairy products, right? I think dairy products also you have to consume in moderation, right? So I remember when we were growing up as kids, the milk used to come from dairy farms which were in the city. We used to see the cows in front of us and how they were being treated, and we knew for a fact back then that those cows were not being injected with antibiotics and growth hormones, bovine growth hormones all the time to just jack up the milk production, right? Unfortunately, the dairy that you get today is not of that quality, right? So at one level, think of dairy as you need to limit the intake of it. Once in a while, if you eat some yogurt, once in a while, if you eat some paneer, that's not bad. But the problem is these days we are getting cheese in everything, right? If you look at restaurant menus, for some reason, pav bhaji needs to have cheese in it, right? For some reason, samosas need to have cheese in that. And that is where we are going excess, right? Once in a while, once in a week, if you eat some, Shahi paneer, that's not going to kill you. But please don't have this notion in your head that eating cheese in every meal, by the same logic, by the way, whey protein, right? Whey protein is made from dairy. Whey protein shakes are directly hitting your liver because they have no fiber in them, right? So all of those amino acids, which are highly processed, whey protein isolates, for example, they go straight into your liver because there's nothing stopping them. They are already made completely processed. And those branched chain amino acids in these whey protein shakes are going to cause liver fat and all of these. So please don't be drinking whey protein and all of these things after every workout, every day, thinking that will make you healthy and fit, right? That's not the case. Consume dairy also in super moderation, just as any of these non-vegetarian, non-plant foods should be consumed in moderation, like what doctor was saying. So let's move on. These are the diet and exercise tips from American Heart Association in terms of managing your hypertension risks, right? 7 of these here, and we'll look at 3 more on the subsequent page, because we promised you that you'll get 10 tips. So what are these 7? Lose weight, right? Needless to mention, we've been talking about this throughout. Number 2, adopt the DASH diet. DASH stands for Dietary Approaches to Stopping Hypertension. What does the DASH diet emphasize? It emphasized fruits and vegetables and low-fat dairy products. It talks about reducing total fat consumption overall, right? So maximize your consumption of fruits and vegetables. And by the same token, maximize your consumption of legumes like dals and whole grains. Reduce salt, cut sodium by about 1,000 milligrams per day, right? If not more. And by the way, please be aware that salt is not just in the table salt that gets added to your sabji and dal at your place, at your home. Like doctor was mentioning earlier, factories and packaged food manufacturers also add salt to all of their packaged foods, including, by the way, bread, including packaged chicken, including packaged meats, because salt helps in preserving and extending the shelf life of these food products, right? That's the other reason why it's important for you to try and eat as much as possible plant-based products, because you know that those would be naturally low in salt, right? If you are eating a lot of animal products, please be aware that there might be salt in it hidden by the manufacturer just because they wanted to extend the shelf life of that product. Increase potassium. Potassium is found in all plant-based products, right? So that's why eat more fruits and vegetables, eat more legumes, eat more nuts, eat more whole grains because they will have more potassium. Sodium and potassium, they work in opposite fashion, right? Unfortunately, our sodium intake has gone very high and potassium intake has gone very low. We need to rebalance that. And we'll look at that on the next page also. Exercise regularly, get at least 30 minutes of aerobic exercise every day of the week. Limit alcohol, if possible, cut it out, and quit smoking, right? You can see that all of these will have measurable improvements on the right-hand side of the page. You will have measurable improvements in your blood pressure if you make these changes. And I think there was a question that somebody was asking, I think Prayas, you were asking this question, which is, you are on medications on blood pressure. Is there anything that you can do to reverse them, right? Well, I would again request you to, and separately you can connect it with us. We'll connect you with Dr. Vijay. But you can make these lifestyle changes and your blood pressure will definitely come down. Whether your medications can be withdrawn or not is something that's between you and your physician. But you should definitely make these lifestyle changes. This is the page that talks about why the need to rebalance sodium and potassium intake. During our Paleolithic era, so like the doctor was talking about earlier, back in the day, we were consuming 11,000 milligrams of potassium every day and only 700 milligrams of sodium. That's how our bodies evolved. Unfortunately, now we consume only 2,500 mg of potassium a day and 3,400 mg of sodium a day on average. No wonder we are getting all of this hypertension and all of these metabolic disorders, right? You have to increase your potassium intake by eating more fruits like bananas, oranges, grapefruits, by eating more beans like black beans, white beans, nuts like peanuts, baked potato, tomato, etc. Right? So what you will notice on that chart is that they are mostly plant-based products, right? So that's the other reason why it is more beneficial to go plant-based if you have hypertension, because you will naturally be increasing your potassium intake and you will naturally be lowering your sodium intake. Just as a source of reference, please note that when you go out to a restaurant and you just get a cup of soup and chicken sandwich, let's say, right? That alone is 2,200 milligrams of sodium, right? So that cup of soup and chicken sandwich alone will max out your recommended sodium intake for the day. This is why it's important that if you want to have soup, please make it at home and have it. Because outside soup, restaurant-based soups will be very high in sodium because they want to amp up the taste factor of that soup. One slice of pizza from a Domino's or outside can have 700 mg of sodium, right? So that's the other reason why you have to be careful about what you eat outside. 3 more factors, which are lifestyle factors, which are important. Number 1, how do you manage your stress and improve sleep, right? Stress reduction through yoga, through meditation, through other relaxation techniques can lower your systolic blood pressure by 10 millimeters of mercury, right? So if you are 145 millimeters of mercury right now, and if you have stress and anxiety, stress reduction techniques can lower your blood pressure by 10 millimeter of mercury. And maybe you will be lowering your need for antihypertensive medications if you can lower your stress. Increase the nitric oxide intake. Why? Because we saw in the chart earlier that a lot of these foods that we are eating, which are bad for us, they cause a depletion in nitric oxide levels, which further causes stiffening of arteries and blood pressure, as well as heart disease later, right? So you need to increase your nitric oxide intake. Eat more beetroot, amla juice, berries like jamun in India, right? They're highly beneficial for increasing our nitric oxide intake. And last factor, please continue to work with your doctors on medications, right? As Dr. Vijay will also elaborate, medication, there are good medications and bad medications for blood pressure also, right? These medications that you are on blood pressure might have other side effects. So you need to know what are the right medications, and then you need to comply with the medications that your doctor is prescribing. Doctor, any thought on that, on how our audience members can be more aware of staying compliant, adhering to the prescription that their doctor is giving them, as well as what sort of factor that their doctors need to be thinking about when prescribing their antihypertensive medications?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Basically, what people need is completely different from what people want. Okay. Now, prescribing medicines is a very easy job. It can be done for everybody. But the point is not that. The point is that uh, whether those medications will be effective or not. If you don't reverse, if you don't change the atmosphere or the environment, and if you don't change your lifestyle, how much amount of medicines you use won't reduce your blood pressure. It might reduce the blood pressure on a transient note, maybe for an hour or two, but again the BP will go up. So there's no point. In fact, it will be more a problematic thing, because the BP gets to fluctuate up and down. Okay, number one. Number two, there was a previously a concept of this ABCD rule. See, all the medications under which are there on planet Earth, even paracetamol, even your pantoprazole, any medicine can cause side effect. Okay, none of them are safe. That doesn't mean we should look at every medicine with skeptically. Okay, the point is, now the latest concepts, the latest guidelines say that whatever medicine you are using, you can use, immaterial of whether it's an AC inhibitor or a ARB blocker or a beta blocker or a diuretic, whatever may be the class of antihypertensive medications. The goal should be to reduce the BP. If you can't achieve with one medicine, hike it up to second. If you can't achieve it two, hike it up to three. But all of these should be supported on a base of good lifestyle change that has to be kept in mind. Okay, number one. Number two, one more thing I just wanted to add was this lifestyle changes usually are very easy to say, but difficult to follow. Okay, because none of them are sustainable. Okay, your motivation will eventually win off. So you just look at what is happening in the market nowadays. The quick service restaurant markets, the Zomato, which is almost nearly $10 billion industry now. Just Zomato is 10 billion US dollars valuation.
Yeah.
Think about Swiggy, then DoorDash, and so many things. On a Jiffy, we need food. Everybody likes to gratify their taste buds, and none will be thinking over a long-term horizon. So always remember, think long-term. Think about when you will be 70 or 80. Do you want to come to me as a patient, or you want to be free and happy with your grandkids? That is a question you have to answer.
Yeah. Thank you so much, doctor. And I think maybe not even 70, 80, right? Maybe the way the trends are, if we continue our lifestyle like this, maybe we'll be with you. Not that we should not be with you. We would love to be with you, but not as a patient of kidney failure.
No. I always tell more come to me that pray to God that you should never meet me. Okay. If people are here from Telugu, there is a Telugu movie, Brahmanandam, there's one dialogue. నీ టైం బాగాలేనప్పుడు నన్ను చూస్తావు అంటారు. అంటే when your time is not good, you will meet me. Okay. Just for fun's sake. Okay. I just wanted to add this fun component and make it little more light-hearted. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's something.
Kamal, sorry to cut you in between. I think we are running very short on time. we had a few questions already in the chat box itself. So can we, if possible, can we, take these questions first, and we can then move ahead.
Right. So I think there's one question here from Amit, who is saying, why do hypertension patients need to increase their medications over time? And I think doctor already answered that question, which is most of these medications will only produce a transient effect on blood pressure. They'll only cause a short-term dip in blood pressure. But in the absence of true lifestyle changes, true diet and lifestyle changes, some of which, by the way, are not easy to make, right? You will ultimately have to resort to more medications, which is why it's important that you focus first on changing your diet and lifestyle before you resort to just relying on medications, right? I think medications have a role, like what doctor was saying. It's always easy to prescribe medications, but you have to think about the long term, because these medications will only produce a short-term effect, right? There's another question here saying, how do you suggest whey protein should be taken? Um, the way whey protein should be taken is it should not be taken at all, right? You should be, if at all you need to get protein, please eat real foods to get proteins, right? Please eat more legumes, please eat more nuts, please eat more peanut butter and almond butter. Once in a while, if you eat chicken, that's fine. Once in a while, if you eat fish, that's fine. But whey protein should not be taken by anyone. If you still want more protein at the end of your gym workout, for example, choose vegan protein. So choose the vegan protein, which is made from green peas, brown rice, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. Please choose that vegan protein powder. Whey protein, is meant for the cheese manufacturers to maximize their profit. Cheese manufacturers back in the day used to completely throw away whey, which was a byproduct of cheese processing. They used to throw that whey away, thinking it is a completely useless product. And then some marketer came and said, hey, why don't we manufacture and why don't we market whey protein as a useful source of protein for human beings? And so that's how the concept of whey protein was created. It's not meant for human beings. It's only meant to increase the profit of cheese manufacturers. So get rid of that. Amrita is asking, is non-iodized salt effective to have if having hypertension? Not really, because salt is salt. Whether it's iodized or non-iodized, it doesn't matter, right? You should always have iodized salt because you need iodine for your thyroid glands. But if you have hypertension, you have to cut down on your salt intake dramatically. Whether it is iodized salt, non-iodized salt, it doesn't really matter. Hey, everyone, I also would request you to please give us feedback. I think on the chat window, you must be seeing a SurveyMonkey link for giving us feedback. Both Dr. Vijay and us at TGHC, we have put in a lot of effort into preparing for this webinar. And so we would love for you to give us feedback so we can come back and deliver even more science-backed and powerful webinars on these health conditions. So just an interjection, please give us feedback. Going back to our presentation, as also doctor was saying earlier, these changes in diet and lifestyle are extremely difficult to make, right? On our own, our motivation levels very soon will wane. Our motivation levels will go down because the Zomatos and the Pepsis and the Swiggies and the McDonald's and the Domino's and the Britannia and Parle-G's of the world, they will keep tempting us to buy their products, to order junk food from them. And they are supposed to do that because they are working for profits, they're working for their share prices, right? But we need to do what is best for our health. This is where behavior change is important, but behavior change is also hard in the absence of a proper health coach, in the absence of a certified and licensed health coach. This is where we as the Good Health Clinic come into the picture. Our mission is to democratize precision health for reversing cardiovascular disease and cancer risks. These include hypertension, obesity, PCOS in women, diabetes, high cholesterol, and mind health issues. We have proven our outcomes and published them in our outcomes reports. We are completely safe and science-led, so we are not practicing any of these fad diets like keto diet or fasting, etc. What we practice is exactly as per guidelines published globally by scientific and medical associations. We have a certified international team to help you overcome your health conditions and to help you make behavior change happen, right? And as I was alluding to earlier, for this audience, our next cohort of health coaching will start around early June. So please make use of this offer. It'll be almost at a 40–50% discount to what our retail prices on the website are. So if you know anybody in your family, in your circle, in your friends who has diabetes or blood pressure or obesity or high cholesterol, please make use of this offer. You will not get a better offer for a program like this in the market. You will definitely benefit, and you should not be having any excuse for not doing behavior change and for not taking ownership of your health after this exclusive limited time offer. So please reach out to us. We'll also put you in touch with Dr. Vijay if you have any of conditions like hypertension, any kidney conditions. He has also adopted good health as a mission for himself, right? So he'll be very, very glad to work with you either in person in Hyderabad or remotely through digital channels for improving your health. So please reach out to us. Please make use of this offer. With that, I will open back to Q&A.
Yeah. Kamal, I have one question that I mean, it's there already in the chat box itself. I'll just take it up with you. So this question is by Pooja. I have got high BP in 2017 during my pregnancy, and that time I had lost my vision. And after C-section, I got the conversion, and also after my delivery, I stopped taking the BP tablet. So can plan for pregnancy for second child is there would be any risk because that time doctor has taken signature that we can only save child or mother, so please guide me.
So this is clearly out of my area of expertise, so I'll let Dr. Vijay answer if this is something that he might have dealt with. Dr. Vijay, did you hear that question?
Yeah, pregnancy-induced hypertension, which has led to end organ damage, usually fits into the definition of preeclampsia. So there is definitely a genetic component, and this preeclampsia tends to recur. So if you can see, there is a high chance that you will be developing hypertension again. That there's no doubt about that. But still, if you if you insist or if you feel like continuing, definitely you have to meet your nephrologist, your gynecologist and nephrologist, and more intensive management, early detection of hypertension, more intensive treatment with labetalol and various other medications, and a definitive plan has to be there. It cannot be a normal pregnancy. It will be a high-risk pregnancy.
So Pooja, you should reach out to Dr. Vijay, who has also shared his WhatsApp number on the chat. Please reach out to him or please reach out to us through our channels, which are on your screen right now, and we'll connect you with him. And you should definitely make use of his expertise. I think there's one more. Yeah.
One more question. I think Kamal, we have already answered more of these questions. So I think we'll just take this up as the last question. Any more question, you guys can reach out to us at wellness@pazcare.com, and then we can take it up with Kamal and Dr. Vijay. So I'm closing this. I'm considering this question as the closing question. So I have a high BP, which is 140/75. He's age 29. This question is by Danu. Have you seen patients who have reduced it to normal range via behavioral change? A BP less than 120. And which one is the key behavioral change among different options?
So I think I'll give a short answer and then Doctor, I'll hand it over to you. In our program at the Good Health Clinic, we have seen our members take their BP down from upwards of 145 down to 125 level in a matter of 3 to 4 weeks when they have made the diet and lifestyle changes. You asked about which is the most important lifestyle change that we have seen our members make. The first one is to try and lose weight by eating as per your regulated meal plan that your coach will prepare. That meal plan will be very low in processed foods, in sugars, as well as mostly low in animal foods. And it will be very rich in whole plant-based foods, as well as fruits and vegetables and legumes, right? And in our practice, we have seen that as the most important way to bring down blood pressure. Dr. Vijay, also over to you for that.
Yes, certainly it is possible. I'll just finish off this question with one story, something like that. So there was one study which was done on Amazon tribes. Amazon tribes are people who are cut off from the civilization. They are still foragers only. That means they eat whatever they get. They are hunters, hunter-gatherers, okay, foragers. A study was done on them. They have the scientists went into the Amazon forests, rainforest, and checked their blood pressure and collected their urine. Okay, they collected the urine for what? To look at the sodium levels in urine. Okay, they found that the normal blood pressure of these Amazon tribes, systolic blood pressure, was not more than 70 over 50, and the urine sodium was almost negligible. Okay, now what we have learned, what is the normal blood pressure? 120 by 80. Who said that is normal? We ourselves are telling that that is normal. Okay, but that is not actually normal. That is a little bit higher when compared to Amazon tribes. And when you look at a typical Western diet or an Indian diet for that matter, it is a misconception that Westerners eat a lot of salt. Indians eat much more higher salt than Westerners. You go to any Punjabi or any dhaba, you will come to know that we eat very, very high salt diet. So coming to this, the normal sodium level, what we usually see in the urine is way more than 250. Okay, so if you ask me one single thing which will try to reduce your blood pressure, then I would say it is salt. Even if you do not exercise, even if you do not move a muscle, if you reduce your salt, the BP will automatically come down.
That's right. So I think that should stress the importance of moderating your salt intake. And by the way, that please note that there are other ways by which you can make your food still taste delicious, right? So it doesn't mean that your food will become entirely bland. There are other salt substitutes that you can use, which our health coaches will be very, very happy to work with you on. So I think, Anshik, with that, we can close. Prayas is asking how to inquire about the program. So yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be sending you one mail with all these details about their program, the TGSC program. TGSC is one of our good partner, and they really help us host these wellness sessions. Just one last question, Kamal. I think this came to me, to my personal chat. So this question is by Udita. The question is high blood pressure genetical? Does anxiety in the future get high blood pressure?
Anxiety definitely contributes to high blood pressure. Chronic anxiety is a leading risk factor because obviously when we are anxious, some of the terms that the doctor also used earlier, sympathetic nervous system, right? Sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flight response. When we are chronically stressed out or when we are chronically anxious, our sympathetic nervous system is turned on. When our sympathetic nervous system is turned on, we produce these two hormones called adrenaline and noradrenaline, which basically keep our muscle tone stiffer, which keep our arteries stiffer, and which increase our blood pressure. So chronically high levels of anxiety will cause blood pressure. That's the direct mechanism of that. So you have to work on relaxation techniques like yoga, meditation. You have to get more sunshine because sunshine and nature exposure also makes us less anxious. You have to work on improving your sleep also, right? So that's one. Talking about blood pressure, whether it is genetic, yes, it does have a genetic component also. So if your parents have had hypertension, then you will be at additional risk of developing hypertension. But that does not mean that it's a death sentence, right? There are changes that you can do to avoid that hypertension still. You might just have to make stronger changes, right? So the saying, I think, in science is that genes load the gun, behavior pulls the trigger, right? So just because you have genes from your parents which carry higher hypertension risk doesn't mean that you will 100% get it, right? You can still make behavioral changes which will prevent you from getting hypertension.
I think Kamal, that answered the question, and I think we are already 20 minutes above the time limit with that we had. So that actually means we had a very informative and insightful session. Any more questions? I'm so sorry, guys. If we left out any questions, I'll just take it up with the doctor and with Kamal separately, and we'll reply it back to you. So thanks a lot, Kamal, and people who are still there, do make this use of this opportunity of availing TGSC's program. This is one of the benefits of being the Pazcare member. And yeah, we'll be sharing the recording, Nimisha. We'll be sharing all the recording, the PPT, if they allow this particular
I
thing
just
to be
wanted to
shared.
say thank you to Kamal once again. Thank you, Kamal.
Thank you so much, Kaustav. Thank you, Dr. Vijay, also. Your time was very, very precious. So we are really glad that you gave us that much time. Thank you so much, Anshik, for organizing this.
Thanks a lot, Kamal. Thanks a lot, Doctor. We'll be, hopefully we'll meet up again. Thanks a lot. Thank you
Thank
everyone
you so
for
much.
joining us in. Bye-bye.